Hey everyone, WizardEmu here, and today I'll be reviewing Croc 2. Let's dive right into it. Croc 2 is the sequel to Croc Legend of the Gobbos, which I previously reviewed. I'll be comparing the two games a lot in this review, so if you haven't already, I highly recommend watching the previous video to get the full picture. The story starts with the inventor Gobbo, who is peacefully working on a plane in his workshop. After finishing for the night, he decides to go for a walk. However, little does he know that he's about to discover something terrible. As he reaches a fork in the road, he hears ominous chanting just around the corner. Curiously, he turns to the direction of this mysterious chanting, only to discover 4 evil horned Dantinis, who are performing some sort of dark ritual. Intrigued, the inventor Gobbo watches on. After the ritual is finished, the goal of the wicked Dantinis is made clear. They have brought back their evil master, Baron Dante, from the dead. As the trembling inventor bears witness to the undead Baron, he freezes in sheer terror. When he eventually tries to make his escape, he is too late. The Dantinis move towards the horrified Gobbo to capture him, as the screen fades to black. Meanwhile, it's a sunny day at the beach, and Croc and his Gobbo friends are having some fun with a beach ball. As Croc goes to retrieve the ball, he finds a message in a bottle. Upon reading the message, it seems to be written by Croc's parents, who are looking for their long-lost son. Determined to be reunited with his parents, Croc is launched from a seesaw to make his way through the Gobbo villages in order to reach them. However, while he's on this quest, he'll soon come face to face with familiar enemies, who have returned once more to cause trouble throughout the Gobbo lands, and it's once again up to Croc to help the Gobbos out and ultimately put an end to Dante's evil schemes. Now, let's get into the gameplay. Firstly, I'll answer this burning question. How was the camera compared to the first game? Well, the camera controls are a lot better than before, but it's still not perfect. Let me explain. Although tank controls are no more this time around, and thank God for that, the new camera really struggles with long, narrow hallways. No matter how many times you will mash the camera snapping button, and no matter how many times you will angrily push the right analog stick, the camera will not turn around until you've exited the hallway, done a U-turn, and then re-entered it. Now this terrible issue might make the camera sound unbearable, but in most other scenarios, it feels a lot more streamlined and reliable than the first game's camera. I say most other scenarios because controlling it in areas with ice physics and sharp turns can be pretty hard until you got the hang of it. Thanks to the addition of tank controls, movement feels a lot more fluid. When I first messed with the controls, I was so impressed by how smoothly he moved, especially compared to the first game, that I actually ran around in circles for a bit purely because I couldn't get over how good it felt. There's also a new kind of jump they added called a triple jump, which can be performed by pressing the jump button 3 times in mid-air, hence the name. It's useful for reaching higher places that Croc can't reach with his normal jump. I like the addition of this move, and I think it fits well with the rest of his moveset. According to the manual, there's apparently an acrobatic flip jump move, probably similar to the one in the first game. However, as with the triple jump, the flip jump was never mentioned in the actual game, so I didn't know I could do it, and therefore never used it. One of the other main differences between the first game and the sequel is the way each of them are structured. While the first game has a level select screen that's pretty similar to Crash Bandicoot 1, the sequel has hub areas instead. The hub areas are called the mainland villages, since they're located on a continent called mainland, but for simplicity's sake I'll just call them villages. There are 4 villages: Sailor Village, Cossack Village, Caveman Village, and Inca Village. The first 3 villages have 5 normal levels, consisting of platforming ones and vehicle ones, which can be beaten in any order you like. Each of these villages also have 2 boss levels. To unlock a village's first boss level, you have to beat 3 of the village's normal levels first. Afterwards, as soon as you leave the level, it'll take you directly to the village's first boss level instead of the hub. Once you've beaten the remaining levels in the village, you'll directly be taken to the village's final boss level. Each village also has a golden Gobbo level, which I'll be talking about in depth later because I have a lot to say about them. The 4th village is structured differently from the rest of them since it's the final mainland village. It doesn't have a vehicle level and therefore only contains 4 normal levels. To unlock the first boss of this village, you'll need to beat the first 2 normal levels. Immediately after defeating this boss, you'll be thrown straight into the second last level, and after beating that, you'll be directly taken to the last normal level. Both of these are platforming levels that fittingly contain harder, unique challenges compared to the rest of the levels, and if you get a game over in either of these, you'll have to do the village's first boss fight all over again, before you can reattempt them. After beating the final level, you'll be transported to a secluded area within Inca Village, where you'll finally confront Baron Dante. After beating the 4th village, there are 3 secret villages that are unlocked once you've collected all 4 of the jigsaw pieces, but I'll be talking about those later, because first I'm going to talk about the main gameplay mechanics, starting with the primary collectibles. The crystals and the color crystals from the first game return, though they're now called gems and color gems respectively. There are still 5 color gems in every level, and collecting all 5 is still required for 100%ing a level, but the regular gems work differently now. Previously, they functioned exactly like the rings from Sonic the Hedgehog, meaning if you got hit, you'd lose all of the crystals you had instead of losing a life. But if you got hit without having any crystals, then you'd lose a life. Now there are only 100 gems per level, and they're primarily used as a currency, apart from the fact that you can still get a heart restored if you collect 100 of them. You can spend them at Swap Meet Pete's general store, which is located in every hub area. From there, you can buy heart pots, which are basically the heart containers from Zelda, since they each increase your maximum hearts by 1. You can also travel between villages that you've unlocked via the crystal ball inside the store. While the first game uses a traditional life system for health, this game uses a hit point system that I haven't really seen in any other platformer. Starting out, you have 3 hearts. You'll lose a heart and become invincible for a few seconds whenever you get hit by an enemy or touch a hazard. If you fall off the stage, you'll just respawn either at the last checkpoint you've activated or at the start of the level if you haven't activated any. If you touch a hazard such as lava, Croc will bounce off it 3 times before dying and respawning at the last checkpoint. If you can manage to make it back to land before you reach that 3rd bounce, you'll have a chance to escape. This kind of lava mechanic is also seen in other games, such as in the Ratchet & Clank games. I like this mechanic, as it gives you some leeway if you fall in, instead of instantly killing you. Anyway, another way of restoring health, aside from collecting all 100 gems in a level, is by collecting heart tokens, each restoring 1 heart. Going back to the shop, you can also buy items that are required for 100%ing levels. Firstly, in the NTSC version there are gummy savers, though in the PAL version they're replaced with jelly jumps, and that's what I'll be calling them. Despite the name and model changes between regions, in games they function exactly the same. The only annoying thing is when you're looking up a walkthrough and it tells you that you need a blue gummy to 100% in a level, when in the PAL version that's actually equivalent to an orange jelly. Or when they say you need a purple gummy, while in the PAL version that's equivalent to a red jelly. However, the green jelly and the green gummy are completely equivalent. Now for what the jelly jumps actually do. You can use them on jelly jump pads to bounce up really high to reach secret areas with collectibles in them. Each color of jelly has a different jumping strength. Orange is the weakest, red is the strongest, and green is in between the two. You can use any of the colors on any jelly jump pads, regardless of whether they match or not. But if you use a weaker jelly on a pad that's of a stronger color of jelly, you won't be able to reach the secret area it leads to. Different levels have different amounts of jelly jump pads, along with different colors of them. There is one more kind of item you'll need to 100% levels, that being the Clockwork Gobbos. Once used on a Clockwork Gobbo pad, they basically function as drones that you can control down a linear path in order to get a colored gem. But there's a twist. They're time limited, so you'll have to be very precise and turn around corners as close to the inside as you can so you can be efficient enough to even reach the colored gem before the time runs out. These are really frustrating, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. The best thing I can recommend when doing these is to buy a bunch of Clockwork Gobbos beforehand. That way, it won't matter if you fail the first couple attempts, since you'll have enough extra Gobbos to help you get used to the track so you can beat it anyway. It's also less stressful that way. Areas that can only be reached by using a jelly jump or a Clockwork Gobbo will always have one of the 5 colored gems inside. Colored gems can also be found in areas that don't require an item to be reached. If you're going for 100% completion, you'll need to keep an eye out for both kinds of colored gems, as it can be pretty easy to miss if you're not careful. Whenever you're going to 100% a level, I highly recommend looking up the level's walkthrough page on Croc Wiki of the Gobbos before you enter it, because each of these walkthrough pages contain a handy list near the top of the page that contains all of the items you need to purchase to 100% the level in question. Any other online walkthrough will do fine as well, but I found that using Wiki of the Gobbos made it especially quick and easy to access the required item list compared to other sites, which was invaluable to me. Before I eventually decided to use walkthroughs, I used to finish each of the main levels twice. Once so I could keep an eye out for all of the item pads to try and memorize all of the items I needed for the 100% run, and once more so I could actually 100% it. I went with this method of doing 2 runs per level for a while, but while using it, it was really easy for me to miss item pads with no clue about where they could be. Sure, I'd find them all eventually while continuing to use this method, but it ate up so much extra time, and the process was really frustrating without a guide. So that's why I recommend using the walkthrough pages from Wiki of the Gobbos. Even if you don't want to use the walkthrough itself, itself, try using the item list on those pages so you can enjoy your completionist playthrough without having to worry about potentially missing collectibles, wasting gems in the process, and then having to replay the level again. Once you've collected all 5 color gems in a level, a golden Gobbo bubble will appear nearby. Entering the bubble transports you to the level's golden Gobbo section, which is a short parkour challenge. The reward for beating the challenge is the golden Gobbo statue, which is an important collectible for completionists that I'll talk about later. With a lot of these sections, the keys to beating them are patience and timing. So first off, you need to make sure you don't just rush into the section or that will happen. Secondly, it's very important to keep in mind the movement patterns of any ropes or platforms along the path, so that doesn't happen. If you keep all this in mind, then you're good to go. However, the sections can be pretty tense due to the knowledge that losing the section means you have to start the entire level again from the beginning, which in turn means working your way through sections you've already finished to get back to the golden Gobbo section before you can try again. Thankfully though, most of these sections can be finished with only 1 or 2 attempts. However, the golden Gobbo section in the Caveman Village level, Save 50 Trapped Gobbos, took me an hour and 35 minutes to beat. Most of that time was actually spent replaying all of the sections leading up to the golden Gobbo section just so I could have another attempt at beating it. But during the section itself, it took me several tries because of the positioning of the fire Dantinis on these bridges. The timing required to get past them was very difficult, and if that wasn't tricky enough, in the latter half of the section, you had to time a rope swing to defeat this fire Dantini from above so you can finish the challenge. Mistiming this maneuver is a guaranteed way of failing the section, which is really frustrating due to the reasons I mentioned earlier. I really wish Argonaut designed these sections differently so that the player is given a checkpoint right before the section, along with as many attempts as they want to finish it, like in the Crash Insane trilogy with its bonus areas for example, instead of having to slog through all of the parts of the main level that they've already done just so they can finally get another attempt to beat the golden Gobbo section. I see why other people might enjoy this, but personally I see it as a big time sink having to repeat sections that I've already done, though on the other hand it does make finally beating these challenges a lot more memorable, exciting and relieving, so it's kind of a double-edged sword I guess. In direct contrast to the small margin for error that the golden Gobbo sections have, the new health system allows a lot more room for mistakes in general gameplay, which I'm all for. Collecting 1 golden Gobbo from each and every level in a world unlocks its golden Gobbo level. Apart from the slightly different method of unlocking these, they are basically identical to the secret levels from the first game. There are 4 jigsaw pieces, and collecting all of them allows you to access Dante's secret world, which contains the 3 secret villages that I previously mentioned. The secret villages are different from the others because their layouts are nearly exactly the same as the first 3 villages: Sailor Village, Cossack Village, and Caveman Village, though there are other notable differences too. Unlike the villages they're based off, the shop is closed and there are no Gobbo NPCs in these villages. Instead, the secret villages are filled with Dantinis who'll try to kill you. The levels inside each of these villages use mechanics that we've seen before in the mainland levels, along with having layouts that are inspired by the mainland levels. Though these secret levels are boiled down into bite-sized levels, and each can be beaten in as little as a few minutes. As a result, it's easy to blast through all of these levels back to back in no time. All in all, this is a pretty fun completion bonus in my opinion, though keep in mind there isn't anything else afterwards. The game just ends abruptly after finishing the last of these levels. No true final boss, no secret cutscenes, nothing. It just chucks you straight into the end credits, which feels pretty odd. I have a theory about why the ending is so abrupt, but I won't get into it here. I will say though, the dev message in the end credits is pretty ironic and sad to look back on. I really hope we see Croc return in the near future. I'd love for Croc 3 to see the light of day, and remakes of the first 2 games would be incredible, but now I'm getting sidetracked. Back to the review. Touching on the villages again, I love how alive they feel. This is thanks to the variety of props, buildings, and features in each one, which helps them feel varied and interesting, as well as the Gobbo NPCs scattered throughout them. There's a Gobbo standing outside each level entrance to give Croc the goal for the level, and apart from that, there are Gobbos in various other parts of the hubs who each have their own unique dialogue. There are a few who ask Croc to collect a bunch of ingredients in the hub, and you get a reward once you're done. Though these guys just want to run around and pelt you with snowballs, and this guy just wants to beat you in a burping competition. How can you say no to that? His reaction to Croc's gargantuan burp cracked me up, and it's one of my favorite moments in the game. I'm not kidding. Another thing I really like is the large variety of level goals. Instead of every normal level requiring the player to hit the gong at the end to finish like in the first game, now most levels have their own unique goals, and I love it. It makes the levels feel a lot more dynamic than the first game did. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the classic reach the flagpole type of goal, and I actually find those goals really charming. However, it's just so common to see in platformers, so it's really cool to see how they tried something different here. Another thing that helps the levels feel so dynamic are the environments, which just look so good. Though each village has a main environmental theme, not all of the levels use it. For example, Sailor Village is mainly grassy and tropical, but it has a level that's all mines, and there are quite a few cave sections in the other levels inside this village as well. They've also added a lot more rocks, trees, and other neat details that don't seem like much, but they do wonders for the atmosphere. The skyboxes are really pretty too. There's also this fun new level mechanic that was only used in one of the snow levels, where Croc can stomp on these circles of cracked ice, which are scattered throughout the level, to create holes in the ground that lead to really neat cave areas. It gives me huge Super Mario Bros. 3 vibes, since it reminds me of how smoothly the different level themes blend together seamlessly in that game, and I just love stuff like that. Lastly, in terms of level talk, I'll bring up the vehicle levels. They help with keeping the gameplay fresh and interesting. Since Croc controls a vehicle through the entirety of these levels, that means that you don't need to buy any items to collect everything, which is such a nice change of pace coming from the platforming levels. I also really appreciate how each vehicle level offers different gameplay from the last, except there are 2 racing levels, but let's just ignore that. My favorite of these is definitely the one where you ride on a giant snowman head that you have to carefully roll along windy paths that don't have any rails. It's along the lines of the giant ball levels from Super Mario Galaxy, minus the motion controls and the dynamic music track, but it still works well here regardless. I found the hang gliding level pretty slow, but it was pretty unique at least. Now the minecart sections, typically these kinds of sections don't let you go back after you've missed a collectible, but in this game, after riding the tracks right to the end, you can actually go back the way you came from and pick up any missed collectibles that way, which is really nice to see. Though the soundtrack is pretty good overall, personally speaking I prefer the music in the first game, because to me it felt much more energetic and memorable in that game. Though after listening through Croc 2's OST, there are quite a few gems here, pun not intended. Also, how come I never came to appreciate how good the boss tracks were until now? This one has dramatic violin playing in it. I guess I never stopped to appreciate the boss music properly for 2 reasons. During the boss fights I was too focused on not dying, and while doing so I was also too aware of the jarring sound glitches I was experiencing. Upon loading the game, only 4 recording sessions in, I started noticing missing sound effects in the hub areas, and shortly afterwards, levels had the same issue. Throughout my playthrough, I commonly experienced normal sound effects being replaced with random ones, and sound effects being completely absent for a couple of levels was also a regular occurrence for me. It used to mainly occur in the hubs, and the sound effects would temporarily return to normal after entering a level, or if the glitch happened during a level, then exiting to the hub occasionally fixed it. But after a while, the glitch would persist regardless of what I tried, until it would eventually go back to normal on its own, albeit temporarily, before it would eventually return and then repeat the cycle. I'll play some of the audio glitches I had from least bad to most bad. Weird, right? I have no idea if most players have experienced this glitch, or if it's just unique to my copy of the game. If anyone else has experienced this glitch, I'd love to hear it down in the comments. Surely I can't be the only one who experienced it, it's just too bizarre, man. Going back to the OST, there was this one track that really stood out to me while I was playing, in the level Chase the Choo Choo Train. Don't let the level's name fool you. It's such a banger, isn't it? I also think the frantic nature of this track pairs incredibly well with the vibe of the level. It makes chasing after the train around the cave exterior much more thematic and thrilling. It's moments like this that really make it feel like you're playing through a scene in an action movie, and it's just so good. Each boss is fought in a different way, and the game doesn't explicitly tell you how you're meant to fight each one, so you're encouraged to look around the environment yourself in search of any elements you can use to damage the boss, which is a more fun and empowering way to make a boss battle. It's definitely a nice change coming from the repetitive bosses in the first game, because most of those had to be fought by simply running around in circles to avoid their attacks until they tired out so you could damage them. I also really appreciate the special cutscenes that play out before each boss fight. It's really charming. I know I went really in depth with the combat in my review of Croc 1, but here it just doesn't feel necessary. I mean, it's just Crash Bandicoot level stuff. You run up to a bad guy, and you whack him. That's all there is to say about that, really. In terms of walkthroughs, I highly recommend De Facto Longplay's Croc 2 walkthrough. It's really easy to follow along with if you get stuck. They even added chapters with timestamps, which you can use to skip to any section of the game really quickly, which makes it easy to navigate through the walkthrough to find your place. Without this walkthrough, I'd probably still be playing through the game right now. It's that helpful. I'll put a link to the video in the description. Croc 2 is a great game, and a worthy sequel. It's fun, and I really appreciate how it innovates in different ways, though I wouldn't say it's outright better than the first game, at least not for me. Both are different enough to stand on their own, and I appreciate the differences between the two as well. If the camera in the first game was enough to scare you off, you'll likely have a better time with Croc 2, and if you're a fan of Croc 1, or maybe you loved 2 as a kid and were thinking of finally replaying it, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this. I know I'll be replaying both games plenty of times in the future. I also highly recommend this game to any platformer fans out there. You won't be disappointed. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more. Join my Discord server if you want to hang out with the rest of the community, and follow me on Twitter @WizardEmu to stay up to date with channel updates. Thanks so much for watching. See ya!